Are we live? Let me see. Are we sure? I don't see it on my end. Guys, can you hear me? Are we live? We are live. Okay, I see it. Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Most Peaceful Latinas. Unfortunately, Bella can't be with us tonight. She's super sick. She's trying to make it. She's been sick for 2 days. She's actually been trying to recover from 2 days of a bad cold, and she's also been throwing up. And anyways, she can't be here today, but we do have a guest. My guest today, Bella. This is Bella now. This is who has replaced Bella for today. We have Ian Smith. We haven't had any guests at all, but we've also recorded like 4 or 5 times, I think, so far this year. So you will be our first guest.
Let's do it.
And if you guys saw me, for those of you who watched my story on Wake Up with Linda, I was on the Saucecast earlier, Value-tainment. I haven't been there since last year when I ended Donovan Sharp's career. If you remember that, that was a great day. That was a great episode. That was one of my best moments on the internet. It got me death threats. It got me insults. It was just crazy. And I haven't been to Value-tainment since. And it was really good today because it was more political. Because I was like, look, guys, I get it. Like, it's fun to shit on hoes and also on these Red Pill bros. It's fun. I get it. But like, this is so retarded for me, especially. Like, I'm an intellectual. So I can't be doing stuff like that. So then finally they've switched their format and they're like doing more like good debates, conversations. Like, we're talking to liberals, we're, debunking people. Like, these things matter for the election. So I was like, okay, I'll go back to Value-tainment. And like, now I get to dunk on liberals, which is even better than dunking on hoes or Red Pill bros. And so today we focus on that.
But you still got to dunk.
I still did it. So I still did. Guys. This is very
version.
important. While I was on the show, if you watch my stories today, you know that I am the #1 Red Pill disrespecter. That's what I put on my bio on Twitter. And I just I put that on my bio. I put #1 Red Pill disrespecter because I knew it would trigger the incels. The incels. This is important. Also, hold on, guys. 1 second. I'm gonna post this link. And where is that coming from? Is that yours? I can. Hold on a second. Let me put join the live. I forgot to put this on inside. Put it on my. What is it called? My feed, but not on my story. So I went back to Saucecast today, and we had a state representative, Representative Basabe, which, by the way, this is really important. This is why, and I'm going to ask you about this, right? I'll let Ian talk now. Sorry. We had a state representative. His name is Fabian Basabe, and he is the first person to flip the district here in Miami Beach from blue to red. Yeah. But very important, which a lot of conservatives don't want to hear this. His district is very moderate. Okay, it's really moderate, and it has a lot of money. It's like Bar Harbor, Fisher Islands, like it's North Miami. And he's like, I ran on crime, I ran on guns, I ran on what was the other thing? He's like being moderate and on abortion. Like, he didn't run as a anti-abortion, pro-life. He ran on that. And also, like, he ran as a moderate, and he was able to flip the district. And there is a lot of conversation now online that we have to take extremist positions for politics. And whereas we can do that, like, religiously, right? Like, if you're religiously or personally or whatever, it's going to be very hard to win an election just trying to impose things on like everywhere in the country, because every county and district may have different views on social issues than you do, right?
Yeah.
So we had him there. That guy flipped a seat, but by being a moderate, okay, which I know people don't like that. And we had one liberal only who was super. I mean, she was very nice. She was actually very like how do you say it? Like, not just nice, but she was respectful.
Not crazy.
But not crazy. But she brought up the insurrection, and I was like, it wasn't an insurrection, it was a riot. Like, Trump supporters have so many guns. Da da da. I'm like, if we really wanted to have an insurrection, they would have been an
It was
insurrection.
a sing along.
Right.
It was.
There was like
I was there.
there was
It
a
was a sing-along.
shaman praying on the Capitol Hill floor. Anyways, and we had Toria, Toria.
Mhm.
We had her, and then Natalia. Yeah, that was us. But yeah, it was good. I think those conversations moving forward with the election are gonna be better than just
I like to
dating
see a
stuff.
state representative kind of on less of a political podcast. Like there's still some political stuff, but there's some cultural stuff too. I think that's really important. Politicians these days are so unrelatable. And I think that's a very good tactic for him to use, along with the moderate stance. I know, like you said, the GOP doesn't want to hear it, and the holier than thou Christian conservatives don't want to hear that stuff. But they wind up getting very upset when they lose elections.
Oh yeah.
And then they scream voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud, which is sure, that's true.
But if you guys remember, you ran for office, so you can tell them.
Yeah,
and tell them the amount. Remember the
percentage. I ran for office.
Remember, he ran for office.
I lost in the primary. I think I scooped up 39% of the vote in a three-way. I was not the GOP favorite at all. And the most unpopular things that I would say was that I was anti-war, for one, or that I was anti-war as America has done it for the last 50 years, getting into every war without calling it a war.
Right.
But the second most unpopular thing that I would say, because the war was unpopular because at this time we were doing the Ukrainian national anthem at GOP events. That's how bonkers we were at the time. But the second most unpopular thing I would say was that people would ask my stance on abortion. And my stance was, and I said it very clearly, I do not like abortion. I do not support it, but I do not think it should be a legislated issue. And people would gasp every single time. And I would turn tons of people away with it. And before I even got the opportunity to explain it, and to the people that would stick around and listen, what the GOP doesn't understand is that they're not going to, we've lost so much ground that the crazier and more extreme that you are to everybody else, including the independents in the middle, the less likely you are to get anywhere with these people. You can feel that way. And you can maybe one day legislate that way. But if you start running campaigns on that right now, you're never going to get anywhere. That's just the way it is. You have to appeal to the moderate voter because most people are actually in the middle. So even if you want to win over people on the left, you do have to have a sensible approach, even if that's not what you truly want in the end. And there's way too many people in the GOP right now who don't see the forest through the trees when it comes to that. So it's good to see a state rep, especially here in Florida. But his work speaks for itself, obviously.
Yeah. Well, that's something actually that we discussed today. We discussed the subject of abortion, and the first person, so Adam was saying that they had the Value-tainment was sponsoring the Miami Beach volleyball tournament this past weekend. So I guess they started asking girls like, oh, what's who you're voting for, and like what's the most important thing this election. And like all the girls were talking about, which is dumb. We know it's brainwashing, but there's nothing we can do about it right now. Just like screaming at the abyss and wanting to revoke women's rights. Like none of these things are actually going to come to fruition. So in this election cycle, so we know that they've been brainwashed to believe that abortion is a what is it called? Healthcare,
a human right,
right, and also healthcare, like women's rights.
They call it, yeah.
And so they call it. So we know that. But a lot of the girls were saying that. So when this conversation came up today, I told the first girl, Pixie, she was saying, like the first Republicans said that they wanted to leave it up to the states with Roe v. Wade. And that happened. And now they're saying it's not going to stop there. It's gonna, do this or whatever. So, so they're like, oh, we're just, so I'm like, I have to agree with her. And not because I agree on abortion, but that's exactly what happened. Trump ran in a promise, which was to overturn Roe v. Wade. That happened. Yeah. Trump overturned Roe v. Wade. Well, not Trump, the Supreme Court, but because of whether luck or not, whatever you want to call it, on Trump's watch, right? And he appoints these people. they overturned Roe v. Wade, and we have one of the biggest cultural wins that I think in the last like 50 plus years, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Completely living it up to the states, and then states then say we're going to start having an abortion, the heartbeat bill, or 15 weeks or 12 weeks.
Which I agree with
They
that
start-
decision entirely.
Correct. So exactly, because the Supreme Court was just basically saying that yes, legally this belongs to the states. It's not a federal
states'
thing.
rights. Yeah,
exactly.
Fight it out in the state. Fight it out locally. Fight it out in
Right.
the culture of your state.
Right.
What Republicans aren't getting is that they're not going to undo this brainwashing
anytime soon
by legislating it.
Right.
I understand, and I fully agree. I fully agree. Abortion's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. And I have so much like I really feel for the girls who think that it's something empowering, because it's not.
It's not empowering.
It's not something that we should do as a culture 100%. But the only thing that you're going to do to these young women who are so far brainwashed to believe that they have some sort of inherent right to do that, the only thing that you're going to do to them by legislating legislating them unable to do it is piss them off and energize them. If you really want a win on this, it does have to be a cultural win. If you care so much about abortion and you don't want it to happen, you have to get in on the cultural level, and you have to make these people understand that life is precious. Because just and you can win like that. If you go into urban neighborhoods and you start educating young women, especially women of color who have the highest rates of abortion, that life is precious and that it's not some burden and it's not the worst thing to ever happen to them, and that it probably will change their life for the better becoming a mother, and that motherhood is a good thing. All of these things, you start educating that at the cultural level, you'll win on abortion. You'll win on abortion by default, because people will realize that it's a huge scam. But we're not at the point where you're going to legislate it and then win. I mean, look at what happened with Roe v. Wade. It's a great win, but it energized the left.
But they don't want to admit that. Republicans don't want to admit that. They say that, by us saying that, it's kind of like compromising. I just want to give.
It's not a compromise.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to some of our super chats, and also, guys, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share this video. Adam Silva, who always supports us. Thank you, Adam, so much. I gave the first jacket you sent me from the Melania Trump one. I gave that one because it's smaller to Bella. So she says thank you also. Adam says, evening, ladies. I'm sure Linda killed it on Saucecast today. I'll catch you later. Ian, thank you for your unwavering stance and support of our personal freedom. Thank you,
Rock
Adam.
on, Adam. Thank you.
Adam's the best. Reina, I ended up getting the promotion and will be moving. Oh, congrats. That's awesome. I remember that. That's great. Awesome. And then Erica Torres, thank you so much. So these people refuse to accept, going back to the abortion stuff, because that came up today. And what I said was, strategically, like, Trump knows that going any further, like a total abortion ban or a 6-week ban, it's very unpopular. And it happened here in Florida. Like, after DeSantis got reelected, he then signed behind closed doors at night a 6-week abortion ban, which he did not run on. And, most people are like, I don't care. I'm not going to be upset about it. Like, it is what it is. Like, the more you can restrict, I think that's great. But there was a lot of voters that were disappointed. And I'm not saying they're not going to vote Republican, right? But now imagine this at like the national level, right? It's not Florida. It's not just DeSantis. People may or may not want to support a president that has a total ban on abortion. So, yesterday, I don't know if you saw, but like the Tim Cass came after me. I'm pretty sure I'll never be invited again. I got invited, but we never made it because I was super sick. So I don't think I'll ever be invited on Tim Cass anymore. Fuck them.
They've never invited me back after the second time.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, I think we just have differing views on things.
Yeah. Well, basically what happened was this girl, Cassandra, the one that books people, she had a tweet that was like about abortion, saying that like, oh, the people that live in big cities that say that women won't vote over abortion rights are like so out of touch. Mind you, these people don't live in cities. They live in the middle of nowhere in West Virginia, in the middle of
nice house,
literally nowhere. And that's okay. But You are the one that doesn't live in city. You're the one that doesn't know anything. We live in cities. It's very different of what you hear. So I responded back. I was like, it was all very cordial, very nice. Like it was kind of like debate, but they get so emotional about it that she like came after me because I was like, this is such a. I'm like, at first I was like, she's like, oh, what's the point of winning if we're not gonna like, what's the point of winning if we're gonna concede on abortion? And I was like,
when
what
has
do
the
you mean?
GOP won? Like these people are talking about what's the point of winning? Like
But
we
I-
haven't even won at all.
Right.
We've taken nothing but losses since 2016. I mean, we're coming up on 8 years of losses. So
Right.
what are you talking about? What's the point of winning? How about we focus on winning first? Like again, the GOP has been pushed back so far that
I would say that there has
politically
been wins though. Like in terms of like the education, like what we're like, being able to go after school boards, like they've had some cultural and political wins.
yes,
I don't think
yeah.
it's all. I don't think it's all else.
I mean,
think you've
if
seen
we
it.
didn't, if the GOP didn't win, I mean, we'd still be wearing masks with COVID. So yes,
yeah, there's
but
been some wins
politically,
with,
we've been steamrolled. Overall, politically, we've been steamrolled by, I would say, politically and culturally, we've taken more losses than wins overall.
I don't. Okay, so I think that's debatable because, for example, today at Saucecast, like it's kind of becoming cringe to be a liberal, which is a big deal. Like
Yes, but
like,
we're on year 8. I'm not talking about like
Right.
now. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
but-
like
but-
from
but-
2020 or from 2016 to 2022.
yeah.
We've sustained pretty heavy losses.
Yeah. You know why I think too? Because nobody was aware of a lot of, like, I think a lot of people there's been like waves of awakening. I feel like 2016, that it was like a 2020, that it because of COVID, like
Yeah.
there's been
Mhm.
like a wave of the masses awakening to everything. It's not
You're
just
getting
politics.
one. You're getting one now
The
because things are
Hollywood
so
Right.
bad now that people are finally starting to look
Yeah.
around. When people are paying, $100 for every single trip to the grocery store, or $100 every time they go out to eat,
Gas,
even
it's
the most
$3.
politically or excuse me, apolitical person is starting to go, yeah, well, these liberal policies aren't working because they are all around. Everybody in the cities is suffering. So yeah, we are starting to see some wins, absolutely. And I think we got off track with that. But they get
What are we
so
talking about?
the girl from the Timcast
Um,
who got so emotionally upset and saying, isn't
Timcast. She
isn't it
just
better
she
to have
got
a
into-
win?
And then she was basically trying to imply that I was like pro murder and a feminist, and I ended up just trying her back and being like, I bet you I've done more. I bet you I've done more for the pro-life movement than you have. I'm like, the Antifa Miami that got federal charges, the first in the entire country, came down because of us. Because I looked at the tapes from the pro-life clinic because I know the owners and I recognized them, and the FBI got to them. So we were the first people in the entire country, Miami, actually, to put Antifa in jail for federal charges after they vandalized the pro-life clinics. Sorry. And I have a really good relationship. Some of my followers here, who I'm sure are watching, actually, they've donated stuff. They started donating diapers, clothes. I did a fundraiser for a clinic here, so I do pro-life. What is it called? Campaigns all the time. And I told her that. I said, I bet you I've done more for the pro-life movement than you have. But you guys just like to talk a lot. You don't walk. What is it?
You don't talk the talk,
You
or
don't-
you talk
yeah.
the talk, you don't walk the walk.
Exactly.
Well, all
I
these
bet you
people
that's what it
equate
is.
followers and
know?
views and likes and reshares and not that I'm on a podcast right now. We're on your podcast, but like people are like, oh well, I have a podcast. Well, it's like, yeah, and you spread awareness, and that's a great thing. But a lot of these people, I think, overvalue their how much they've actually done with these things. Because as much as having a show and talking about this stuff, where the rubber meets the road is stuff like that, showing up at school board meetings. I mean, you've had people screaming about school board meetings for 2 years now, but the people that are really making a difference tend to do it quietly with stuff like that, where I didn't know that Antifa was put in jail. I know that you and Bella have been battling them for years. But that's the stuff that really does matter.
Yeah, they totally hate us. That's why they're still upset at us because you think Yeah, absolutely. You know, we were very serious about making a national example out of Antifa Miami. And I think it's important to be really cutthroat and, you know your enemies, know what's up,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people want to do that because they're scared. Everyone's scared all the time. And then we have to hear how women shouldn't vote, women shouldn't do this. Well, you can literally go fuck yourself because no man put Antifa in jail first, bitch. It was us. I wish I had more power. I have to watch. Sorry, I have to watch Game of Thrones. I have to watch Game of Thrones every night. This is something that my inner circle knows, and they make fun of me because of it. Just so I can satisfy my need for how I can't say this live. The actions that I would take if I had unwavered power or unmanned, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a good show. It gives me. I should be going to sleep with meditation music, rain music, and instead I'm gonna watch episode
Game
7,
Thrones,
like Game of Thrones. It just is what it is. Somebody got here late, and where's Bella? Bella is actually super sick. She's been sick for 2 days, and then she tried to get better, and then she's like, I'm not gonna be able to make it. She's been throwing up. She has a fever. She's been coughing. I don't know what she has, but she's not doing too well. She'll be okay though. I'm sure she's not gonna die, but she's pretty sick. But we have Ian instead. So somebody said Bella didn't shave. What the fuck?
Bella for the night.
Yeah. Okay. So I was gonna ask you. I feel like we can talk about this, but I feel like you've obviously had controversial takes lately. Especially about the Israel situation and all this stuff, and you've clashed with some influencers as well, and we had the Candace Owens situation. So I want to get your take on first the Candace Owens situation, which we haven't talked about because we weren't here last week, actually. So we should talk about a little bit about the Candace Owens situation and your opinion on the not as the Israel-Palestine situation. I don't know how much we can say on YouTube on this topic because you know how they had a Ukraine thing. I don't know if they made one for YouTube. I have no idea. I haven't talked about the war at all. I don't really pay attention. We'll find out. And so let's start with that first. So what do you make of this whole Candace Owens? So Candace Owens was fired by the Daily Wire. You guys know that. I think it was a long time coming. I think that they've been thinking about it. This is my thing, right? So Kanye West and Candace Owens have a good relationship. In fact, I want to point out that I actually only followed Candace Owens because I was following Kanye, and Kanye said, I like the way Candace Owens thinks. And so we're Kanye fans, we're Kanye fans, we do what Kanye says. So I start following Candace Owens because Kanye said so. And so actually that's how I found out. I didn't really start following Candace Owens because of conservative politics or Turning Point USA or Charlie Kirk or not. It was actually Kanye. And they have a relationship. You guys know what happened with Kanye and his anti-Semitic rant and fight with the Jews. And so then they're trying to make what they're trying to make.
Reading the comments here.
Oh, you're reading comments? Oh, I got this. I thought something went wrong. Oh, sorry. It's been a long day, guys. It's been a long day.
With the whole Candace Owens things, I think it's what you've seen at a smaller level. With a lot of conservative quote unquote influencers, whatever. She has asked nothing, but the one thing I like about Candace is she's not sloppy in anything that she does. She doesn't. I've rarely seen her get very overly emotional to where somebody can pull her out of frame, and I think that's a really good strength that she has. There hasn't been a whole. I mean, I've disagreed with her on some things, but I do respect the fact that she asks good questions no matter what the topic is, and I think when it comes to the conflict over in the Middle East, I think she asks some really good questions. And I think they're questions that 6 months, 7 months into this, I think that everybody should be asking. you know, and I saw this, there was a lot of them, but I saw this one interview that she was doing with this rabbi, and, you know, they were going back and forth, and it wasn't really getting anywhere. And she just said, you know, which is a question that I asked as well, is like, basically like, you know, you guys keep justifying all of these civilian deaths, and you know, it's always, there's always a reason for it. You know, we
Well, you're
have
an
to, we have
anti-Semite.
to.
If you don't want
Yeah.
civilian deaths, if you want to cease
Yeah,
fire,
if you question,
you are an anti-Semite.
it's blood libel.
So
It's blood libel.
libel,
You know,
yeah.
it's
actually a thing.
It's, but the question that she asked is a fair one. It's like, but do you feel bad? Like, because it's like, hey, there's civilians dying. Well, here's the reason. Well, you bombed a hospital. Well, here's the reason. Well, you killed journalists. Well, here's the reason. And all she asked was, there's kids that are dying.
No, it doesn't matter even if it's kids. Like,
do you feel bad? And
right.
The guy, his response, you know, don't quote me, but it was something along the lines of, my heart breaks that Hamas makes us do this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like,
that was crazy. That was a crazy
oh my
one.
God, man,
That was a crazy one.
You can't just say yes.
Yeah.
You, like, that's really scary. And she pulled him out of his frame. And, you know, for questions like that, which I think are fair questions, she was obviously let go. So what does that say about conservative media, right? Because the Daily Wire is seen as this staple of conservative media, along with like PragerU and all these other, you know, similarly owned and leaning outlets that are staples of conservative media, when we can't ask fair questions. Because it was so funny that just a couple of years ago, conservative media was painting themselves as the ones who asked the hard questions when it came to the COVID narrative, when it came to BLM, when it came to all of these other things. And now all of a sudden, you know, there's certain questions that can't be asked. And that's a big change of stance for conservative media over the last couple of years, because conservative media was the bold media. That was the media that would ask the questions, that would say things like ivermectin helps cure COVID. And they were like, oh my God, like crazy stance. And now you're like, children being killed is a bad thing. And they're like, anti-Semite.
Yeah.
And it's, conservative media has very quickly pulled the mask off and has shown itself to be no different than the liberal media. And now you've got people like Candace Owens, who just asked a fair question, who are being canceled because of it. And, you know, it should make every single person who considers themselves a conservative or right-leaning, or just somebody,
an American.
Yeah, just
general,
an American.
Right?
When you have media that is canceling people for I mean, this woman did not say anything crazy. Not at all.
I want to point something out. So I feel like you came into like the conservative scene like 2020, right? Was that the mark?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't really paying attention to politics.
Right.
I was kind of just enjoying the feel-good nationalism of Trump, you know.
A lot of us were that way.
Yeah. I was just a business owner who was just kind of like chilling, making money, and I was happy. And I was pro-Trump, and I was happy with where we were going, but I was not commenting on much politically.
So I started commenting on politics like a little bit before that, like 2018. And I was mostly posting memes. Like, it was also fun. Like, it was in anything how it turned out, like post 2020, and then beyond that. But since then I've known that the Israel stuff with what happened is just forbidden in conservative media. And they'll even say that saying this is like, how dare you say that? Like, that's not true. It is true.
But if you say that, you'll literally prove their point.
And the thing about it is that I honestly knew since then because of what happened to Nick Fuentes, right? And like, I don't necessarily like Fuentes or care, or like, you know, there's some stuff that I think it's hilarious, like some of his clips.
He could be very funny.
It's very, very funny, but you know, I was just observing what was going on. And whatever it is now, because I know people, it's very controversial. And if Fuentes is a pedo, he's this, that. Back then, pay attention, 2018, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know his views. I don't know anything about him, really. But the name is online on Twitter. And I remember that he was canceled back then for asking questions about Israel, foreign aid, more than anything. Not conspiracy theories, not the Jews are behind none of that.
It sets off a huge alarm.
I don't know what happened after, before that. Like, I just remember that. And that got him canceled. and it's happened to a lot of other people. They just don't know, like people don't know
Yeah.
about it. It's happened to a lot of other people. So, you know, I think that it's more exposed now, that that's a very sensitive subject within conservative media, and then you have to like the way that Ben Shapiro described it was like, we have an Overtown window, you know, but he didn't say what it was.
Yeah.
But clearly it was kind of like what was leading up with Candace Owens, because Candace refused to no Candace refused to you know, bend the knee when Dennis Prager, we forget about this, we reported on this. Dennis Prager and Ben Shapiro basically had a conversation with Candace about Kanye West, where they were low-key asking her, like, you need to denounce Kanye West. Like, this is not because Candace didn't say anything, not because she supported his statements or anything at all, simply because they knew that she was affiliated to Kanye West.
It was
and
a strategic move for them.
And we're expecting her to be like, I denounce Kanye for being an anti-Semite, and she refused to do that. She had an episode where she was saying Dennis Prager kind of like called her about it, and she's like, I'm just tired of apologizing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's when the trajectory of her
definitely started to change. 100%.
Exactly. Yes.
You know, well, I think, you know, people like Candace, especially, like there's a certain level that you get to in this game, whatever it is, where, you know, you have your own thoughts, right? So Candace, I remember Candace when she had a YouTube channel called the Red Pilled Coon.
The repro. I remember it
was the something coon.
Yeah, it was it. Was it the coon?
Yeah, and it was just a black woman observing some of the hypocrisies of society. Like I remember she had this one video where she talked about, you know, like they tell black people that they're experiencing racism all the time, and she's like, I don't. And
Red Pill Black. That's what it is. Red Pill Black. That's the name. Yeah, that was the name. Thank you guys.
And she basically went through her own day and was like, yeah, I wake up, I go downstairs and I talk to a Latino and like they say hi.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
I go to the gym and a white guy hands me a towel and he asks me how my day is.
She came out to her parents. She had a skit. It was so funny.
And it was just very sensible. And it was funny because it was, you know, she's got a good delivery, you know, and then she skyrocketed sort of in popularity. And then all of a sudden you get these deals from, you know, these big companies.
You.
Yeah. You know, like
Turning Point
it's very different being on your own platform.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden somebody's paying you a lot of money and hosting a show for you and all these things. So I think, you know, obviously anybody's going to say, yeah, sure, I'll do that. You want me to go work for some big major news company? I'll have my own show. Sure. Then a little bit of time passes. And I think, you know, if I'm assuming correctly, I think you start to learn a little bit about who your employer is, you know, and when you sign on, you don't know that you're going to be censored. She doesn't know that she's going to have to, you know, she thinks that she's going to have her own show and she's going to speak her mind however she pleases. You get into it and you realize, okay, there's some parameters here. You know, there's some parameters.
Things I can and cannot do.
Things I can and cannot do. And eventually, and I think with Candace, she hit a point where she's like, hey, I'm not okay with this. And that's where you saw that trajectory start to change. When you get called from, you know, the owners of your company or whatever, and they say, hey, I know you're friends with this guy and I know you agree with him on everything.
Yeah.
But we're going to need you to compromise your values for this paycheck and denounce him. And some people will do it. Hell, a lot of people will do it. But I respect the fact that she didn't. And that was definitely the change. And you saw her tone start to change. She started to get more bold, which is funny to say because she hasn't said anything outrageous.
Yeah.
You know, in being bold, she's just moved closer to the truth.
But today there was like this guy, I think he's Jewish. His name is, I forgot right now, whatever. He's a conservative commentator. And he was like, I despise Candace Owens. And like just going on this very nasty rant. And she retweeted him and she was like, you despise me? Like, I'm an adult. Like, why do you take so much energy against me? Like, it's just so bizarre. Like, there's a lot of things I don't like about Candace, but to despise her, or like, at the end of the day, she speaks a lot of truth. Yeah. And I think that it's insane. I mean, I have to say this, okay? I didn't grow up here my first like years, right? Like, so like I have a lot, and then I moved to Miami. And I feel like this American education, where they have engraved in their brains the Judeo-Christian values and stuff, it's something that I did not know about until I started to dive into conservative politics. This was a foreign concept to me. This type of like, I would say like, I feel like it, like, you know, idolizing Israel and like, you know, Jews are God's chosen. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not
Just
trying to go into. I'm just saying my
fair
experience
questions.
as a no, but just it's not even questions. That's culturally.
Mhm.
I was never taught, or I didn't share the culture of religion of a lot of the people in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
So that type of like obsession for a
It's
piece of
foreign.
land is extremely weird to me.
Yeah.
First of all, no offense to anybody. I'm not trying to, you know, be disrespectful to anyone's fucking
No.
country. It's just the way that it's insane. It's crazy. And then they make you into a bad person for questioning war or questioning foreign aid. So I think that like there's a lot of people that are waking up to this situation.
Yeah.
I want to share an article with you. Hold on. So that we can discuss this really quick. This just happened the other day. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so World Central Kitchen boss Jose Andres accuses Israel of direct attack on Gaza. So basically, did you hear about this?
Mhm.
Okay, so you know about it.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know about it, basically, a World Central Kitchen is like a nonprofit organization. It was taking meals to Gaza, owned by this chef Jose Andres. And Jose Andres, like they have a restaurant, one or two restaurants here in Miami. It's like he's like a pretty famous chef. I think he's a liberal, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's a liberal. Not sure. But the point is that the 7 people from his organization were driving in a car and they were literally killed by the Israeli government.
Yeah.
And these are like civilians, like they weren't Hamas or weren't, you know, they're not Hamas, period. They're not the enemies. They're just civilians that were killed in a
nonprofit
drone
workers.
strike. And he says that it was a direct attack. Obviously he's upset, obviously, like, you know,
As he should be.
as he should be.
Yeah.
But Ben Shapiro goes on Twitter to
Blood
say
libel.
you saw that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think about that?
I mean, it just goes back to this whole like everybody has to be held to the same standard of conduct, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is. You know, it's so funny because conservatives, Ben Shapiro, will rake black people over the talking about their standards and how they're not held to the same standard as white culture and all these things. But Jewish culture, no, you cannot criticize them. You can criticize Ben Shapiro will go on rants all the time
about crime.
He'll talk about statistics. He'll talk about all these things about how black
Motherhood.
people need to do this, black people need to do that. The criticism's firing off, and a lot of them are legitimate. I'm not saying that they're not. Some of them are very, very legitimate criticisms of that culture. He loses his mind if you do the same thing about Jewish culture, and it's the same thing. You know, he tells black people that they can't be victims, but he screams victimhood on everything. And you have to hold everybody to the same standard. What happened to your people in the past, right, wrong, doesn't matter. Slavery, Holocaust, whatever, does not matter. What matters is the actions that you take today. And for some reason, Ben Shapiro and the bulk of the conservative media will not apply that same standard to Israel, even in the face of stuff like this. You know, this is not the first time
No, it's not. It
at
really
all.
Isn't.
It's not at all. They have a long-standing history of widespread destruction. And it's always, but you can't criticize because blood libel. You can't criticize because Holocaust. You can't criticize because God's chosen people. And, you know, look at this destruction.
Yeah.
And I think people are really starting.
This is so insane.
When you see pictures like that, you can't.
I mean, when I read blood libel, I nearly lost it. I had to like log off on Twitter. I didn't even want to comment. I was just like, I just have to lose it. And I'm so tired of people saying like, if you don't stand, like I've seen commentary on Twitter, like if you don't stand with Israel, you don't stand with America. Like if Israel falls, the United States falls. Like some
What-
bizarre
I
commentary.
love that stuff.
Some
It's
bizarre commentary, which, you know what, like you can have a very strong opinion on in either side, because
Sure.
I'm not.
sure. Yeah.
This is my thing.
You can feel
This
very
is my thing
passionate
as an
about it.
American. I've never wake up ever. I never wake up and think to myself, how are the Palestinians doing? How are the Israelis doing? How are the Uyghurs? You know how there's like, they say like the Uyghurs in China are being trafficked or whatever. I'm sorry. And neither do you.
The open slave markets in North Africa.
Neither do you. You're a fucking liar if you sit here and tell me that you wake up in the morning and the first thing you think about are the Uyghurs or Palestinians or the guys
Or who
in
was getting sick
Sudan
during
or the
COVID
Civil War in
or
Sierra
George
Leone.
Floyd or
You
any
do
of that.
not.
It's all the same thing.
You don't. So, you know, when it comes to let me go back to when it comes to trying to emotionally manipulate people, I just have to like disengage, because I'm so bad at that. I'm like, I'm not gonna deal with you guys. You guys are insane. And I feel like both sides are like that, because equally I've gotten shit from Palestinians, pro-Palestinians, that are like, oh, like you want to see kids dying and, you know, this and that. But you know, it's just we have to be able as Americans to criticize and say whatever we want and not be labeled as racist or as anti-Semites. That just, it's insane.
Well, if it's a bad idea, then prove it wrong. You know, that's the premise of free speech, is that the good stuff rises to the top,
Right.
because ideas have merit. And if you have good ideas, then you should be able to discuss them in a manner in which people go, you're right. That's the whole idea. And the right, for all of the good that the collective right has done over the last couple of years, they very many of them very, very quickly have behaved just like the left that they criticize so often. I mean,
they're like the woke right now. That's what we call it now.
That's exactly what
it's the woke right.
I mean, it's funny, the criticisms that I get. I mean, I lose followers on a daily basis over just asking simple questions about Middle Eastern policy. You know, it's, you hate Jews, it's all of these things, and these
which is all emotional manipulation.
Yeah,
like,
you know,
all of it.
It's emotional manipulation, but it's the same exact tactics that these people have cried about for years. The right has cried about being called racist for years. And all of a sudden in 2020, at the end of 2023, they started calling everybody an anti-Semite. And it's hilarious, because I don't even know if a lot of these people notice.
Some people do.
No
Real
pun
quick,
intended.
I just want very smart. I want to give a couple of shout outs to some super chats that we have. KS says, in my college, I saw two guys sign against abortion. Oh, signs against abortion. The reasons of why women choose abortion, I think, has to be looked at. I feel like a lot of the reasons, like, they have made having a child kind of like a inconvenience.
Yeah.
And the reality is that for the first, like, being a mother, it's very hard and difficult. He just became a father a year ago?
Yep, year ago, a couple of days.
Okay, so a year ago, a couple of days.
It's probably one of the most challenging things that anybody will ever
Right.
do. And it especially during pregnancy and the first year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, it's almost 100% work on the woman.
Exactly.
There's very little that a man does. So yes, it's very hard, but they've made it a punishment.
Right.
And
It's
like
an inconvenience, when in reality, it's like, you know, like I was talking to my friends, I'm like, you just have a little kid right here. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just, they've made it so it's so inconvenient. And so I think that, you know, women are like, okay, my life is going to stop. And in a way, yeah, you can't be selfish anymore. You can't just like sleep until 10 a.m. because, you know, you need to feed a baby. But at the end of the day, it's a rewarding thing, and it is what it is. So I think that's one of the reasons, because then they're like, okay, then it's going to interfere with school or work or this or that or whatever it may be that you have going on. When in reality, it's that a lot of women, even though it's even more difficult, thrive. You know, if sometimes they're like, fuck school. Why do I even need school?
Most women who dive into motherhood, like really dive into it and embrace it, I think end up happier in the long run.
Yeah.
But again, that goes back to what I said earlier. Like, if if we want that to happen less in terms of abortion, we do need to understand that the fears that women have, although they may not be correct,
they're valid.
They're valid,
and
because
you can like debate them and like debunk them.
And you,
right?
you can absolutely debate them and debunk them, and you can change the culture, and you can change the end result where you will have less demand for abortion by shedding light on the reality, just like we just talked about right now, but on a national level throughout cultures, everywhere in this country.
There's a girl on TikTok. I wish I would have downloaded the video, but it will take too long. There's a girl on TikTok, and she has she's not a big influencer or anything, but TikTok, things go viral quickly. So her account is just her sharing like motherhood, and then so she's like, she's only 22, I think, or 23, like between 23 and 24, very young. And she's like, all her videos are like, okay, if you're scared to have a baby, just watch this video. So it's her super cute young, mom, and the little girl's super adorable, like both blonde, blue-eyed, and she's like, it's like having my own best friend. Like, look, we woke up, we took a nap, like we ate, we went to get my nails done. She behaved. I did, like, she's basically like trying to make it so that like any girl that gets scared, she's like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, we took another nap and now we're watching TV, and like, we're not really like, we're just having a good time.
We didn't get to clean the house today.
I gave her
literally
a bath.
The same thing that would happen anyway. Like
I gave her a bath, and then I put her to sleep. So then, she's just like trying to,
I think that's awesome.
Calm the fear. Is super cool, super nice girl. Speaking of pregnancy, this is a good comment. Wow.
I'm reading it.
Yes. Let's go. I knew you guys wouldn't disappoint. Don Juan, let's go. He says, want to give a shout out to two newly dad be fresh. We want to give a shout out to Walter. And maybe he should have followed Trollo's advice. Vasecto, laugh out loud. And then there's 4 on the way, shaking my head. Shapiro sucks. Okay, let me expand on this comment. This is so great. So you guys know that I am a Red Pill disrespecter, and we have our boys from Fresh and Fit, number one men podcast in the world, where they get to tell these prostitutes men's pod. That's what Myron says. I don't think it is, but whatever. They're huge. Like, no disrespect. They work really hard, and that's great. I wouldn't shit on people's work. That's one thing I wouldn't. Because I do this for a hobby once a week, and they have like a legitimate business, so I won't hate on that. But, their content, the way they speak about women, what they say about women, it's just not great. So Walter, which is Fresh and Fit, basically his girlfriend, very short-term girl, he got this girl pregnant, total Instagram model. She has her titties out. She's got her ass out. She's got bikini pictures. She's got the ass shot at the gym. She's got the lingerie. She's got all of it. She's got
all the red flags.
She's hot. She's got a banging body. She's Asian, hot, Looks like a gold digger for sure, showing off her mess, her this, her that, all the fine things, whatever that chicks do. And so he gets this girl pregnant, and she basically records all the stuff, the text messages, the voice notes, the everything, and puts it out there and says, I tell this guy I'm pregnant, this is what happened, and this guy is now saying that I need to have an abortion because I don't want to have a kid. Now, I want to remind people that this podcast not only tells the sex workers that go there, whatever, they put them in their place, or hoes, you're alone, you're not really a 10, you're really a 5, all the things that men like to hear. But they also go into traditionalism, and women are more loose because they take birth control, have abortions, and they're all whores, and they're sleeping around, and this and that, and women don't take accountability. And here comes the man, that preaches this.
That to be a high value man, you need to be disciplined, and you need to be accountable for your actions and all of these things, so that you can cast judgment upon all of the whores that come on your show.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like I always say, like the type of women that he got pregnant is everything that they say is a red flag, according to them. I don't know this girl. This girl could be the best, sweetest, kindest.
On site, yes. On site, visually,
Visually,
yeah.
They say that she has, bikini pictures and this, and showing her body and doing this and doing that. And, he goes and gets his chick pregnant. Like, you know, both parties know what they're doing,
Mhm.
right? Because the woman can just go and take, I mean, I don't encourage this at all, but she could take a plan B if she knows that a guy had a mistake, right? Like a mistake.
Yeah. Or you could just not make the mistake.
Or you could just
Yeah.
literally not do
Just
it.
pull it
Like,
out.
exactly. Very simple.
Took me 36 years to have my first kid.
But I mean, come on, you know,
it wasn't because I was missing shots.
Yeah. And he's saying, you know, he doesn't want to take accountability for it. And I just think it's funny. I just think it's hilarious how that's happening.
Well, it kind
And
of
I think it's
sounded,
great.
I listened to the audio and I don't know this dude. But first of all, I mean, he definitely outkicked his coverage in terms of physical appearance, you know.
Yeah.
So I think
He
that's
has money.
I think that's
These
a win for him.
These girls, well,
you know.
here's the thing. Like, a lot of these chicks are like gold diggers. Like, they do want the money, right? So they know that a way to trap a guy for 18 years it's gonna be for money.
And if you're a dude that has money, you should know that.
Yeah.
You should be very, very, very aware of that.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with that, which a lot of dudes are, a lot of dudes with money don't care. Like, oh, whatever, cool. I got some kids. You know, the wife will take care of them, or the baby mom will take care of them. You know, you got a lot of athletes that are like that, and they go and they make tons of money, and everything's fine. You know, musicians. But if you're wealthy and you know that, then you know you stepped in your own pile of shit. But it sounded like that audio, like he was really trying to get one over on her. Like, I don't know if she sounded like she's foreign, you know, like her English wasn't great.
She genuinely doesn't even live here. She's Chinese.
You know, so she's an international girl. And it kind of sounded like he was like, yeah, he's like, you just go to the doctor and you know, he'll just take care of it. And like, it's almost like he's just trying to just push her in that direction. And I'm not faulting anybody for being scared or like not wanting it or wanting to at least discuss it. That's fair. You want to talk to the soon to be baby mom, talk it out, see where you guys both fall. You both can express yourself. At the end of the day, there is some sort of discussion that can be had. But it's like, oh yeah. You know, you just go to the doctor and he'll just take care of it. And she's like, no. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. Like, just go to the doctor. And you know, she's like, I don't want to kill the baby. He's like, you're not. And he's like, you're not. But you had so much to say on abortion all these other times about how it's so wrong. And now what? Because it's 3 weeks or 4 weeks that the same standard doesn't apply.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, well, you're not killing it. Well, then what are you doing to it? You know, you've got these strong opinions on it.
These men that are preaching for women to take accountability and responsibility should be held to the same standard. And if you made a kid, it's really not big of a deal. Like, you knew what you were doing, and that's that. And that's what you need to do. Let me just move forward with this. Don Juan, looking forward to see Joe Biden excommunicated. Prager's coward ran away from me in real life. Who's Dennis Prager.
Prager, yeah.
Dennis Prager. That's because Americans feel guilty because it's past. I don't know what. Because of America's past. Yeah, they are. White people feel guilty about slavery. They feel guilty about the Holocaust. They feel guilty about everything. It's like white guilt.
Mm-hmm.
It's really unfortunate, especially for us brown people. Very, very unfortunate for us brown people. Huh?
So don't feel guilty about anything. That's
it's just
the biggest scam ever. You know, most white people in this country didn't even have relatives who were here at that time, and because of the color of your skin, you're supposed to feel guilty for anything.
Mm-hmm.
No, shouldn't be that way. If you're white, black, anything like that, white people need to drop that shit like immediately.
Yeah, no, that's true. And white people built a great civilization, and I think a lot of they don't want to admit it, right? Because it sounds like we're saying everybody has played a world, every race has played a part in history, right?
Sure.
Like, look at the Jews. They go back to like the Old Testament. Like, they've been exiled. Like, everybody knows these stories. But it was really, you know, these Europeans that wanted to conquer the New World.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And they sure did.
And then they did. And things worked kind of well for a while. And now they're not. So it's something to consider. Okay, so I wanted to ask you. Bella didn't send me this video again because everything, she just couldn't come last minute. Okay, so there's a situation going around. Have you seen me troll the passport bros also?
Yeah. Yeah, the ones that are going and sleeping with like 13-year-old like South American chicks and
So-
saying that they're looking for wives.
I've had a problem. I've had a problem with this since they started talking about it. Since they started to say,
Anytime they start labeling something, it just turns to shit right away.
yeah,
Like guys have been
Yeah.
doing this forever. You know,
right.
like
Guys have
like
been just traveling.
military
There
military
was-
men are the original passport bros.
Yes, yes,
Like literally.
yes,
And but there was
yes.
nothing wrong with it then. It
No.
was legitimate. And that,
No.
you know, and you got the red pill. Anytime that you start labeling these things. But anyway, passport bros. Go ahead. I'm not
Okay.
gonna go off on a tangent.
I'm just so pissed about this.
Fuck.
Yeah. Okay, so passport bros. Obviously, and I think it's like a social media thing, like everything else
It
has been
absolutely
ruined.
is. It absolutely
Just
is.
like women have ruined themselves
Yep.
with like beauty standards, da 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 da. I also think it's a social media thing because now they want to openly share how much they despise their race or feminists or modern day women or Western women. So they have to go to these countries to look for love,
Mhm.
to look for, they don't think it's so crazy because they say that Western women are very like materialistic and they're always trying to extract resources from men, which I can see. We can get into that conversation and say
It's
yes,
human
somehow.
nature though. That's
Right. But they're thinking that women in another country, they're basically brainwashing themselves to think that women in another country are not like that. When the reality is that those women see you as a meal ticket and as a green card to come here.
couldn't be
So-
further from it.
So it is what it is, from one thing or another, whether it's shelter and food or like a green card, it doesn't matter where it is. Women could use you for that, right? Yes or no? It doesn't matter. It could be anywhere in the
But
world.
that's men are supposed to provide for women, and it doesn't always mean like you're bringing home like the kill at the end of the day. Like
Mhm.
in the modern world, that's very different. Like women are looking for safety and security and reliability. So that might come in the form of a passport.
Yeah.
Because you're typically in those cases taking women from poor countries into a much
Mhm.
better life.
Right.
But no different than meeting a woman here. If you expect to have children and you knock a woman up and you want her to stay home with your children, you're going to provide. She's going to extract resources from you. That's what women. It's not a bad thing.
No, it's just- it's
It
kind
can
of
be a
like
bad
human
thing
nature.
in the form of like gold digging or whatever.
Right. Or like trying to
Um,
actually take like whenever people talk about prenups and I'm sorry to interrupt, I always think of like what would I want for my kid? So like let's say that like I end up making a lot of money in life and I end up having a child and it's a boy. And then my things are gonna pass down to him. That this is like generational wealth.
Mhm.
I want him to sign a prenup.
Sure.
Like I'm not fucking going to let
Getting divorced
I don't
a year
care.
later or
Right.
whatever.
Whatever you guys make with your wife, or if you want to have an arrangement that's like, okay, we get divorced the first 5 years, I'm going to give you X amount of money while you get off your feet because you stayed home with the kid, right?
Sure.
You're
Fair deal.
helping in a business or whatever. I don't have a problem with that. But in general, as you said, women are going to look for something. So let me backtrack to this passport bro. So this is what's going on right now. So the passport bros have basically chosen a few destinations around the world to
The hometown.
to just be degenerates. And one of them is being Medellin, Colombia, which they have totally ruined. Medellin, Colombia is a beautiful city. It's actually very modern. It's clean. It's green. The weather's perfect, 74, 76 degrees all year long. Gorgeous mountains, beautiful women, beautiful people, nice restaurants. It genuinely has, to me, and right now, it's probably one of the world's biggest destination. You see that when you go, there's so many foreigners. And these motherfuckers have figured it out as a way to go there and not just sleep with women, but sleep with children. And this is a problem. This is a problem because what's happening is that they have rebranded this movement, which, as if you guys heard my podcast, I've complained about it. They've rebranded this movement as just, we hate Western women. They're all masculine. They're all fat. They're all ugly. They're promiscuous. And instead, we're going to go to Colombia or whatever it is and find this traditional virgin, non-ran through, pretty, skinny girlfriend, wife, submissive, blah, blah, blah. So last week, there was a case in Medellin, which the mayor has been saying, a new mayor comes in. He's a right-wing mayor. He was elected, I think, like last November or something, or around the fall. And one of the things that he said was, we want tourism, but we want the right tourism. We don't want sex tourism here at all. And of course, we don't want child sex tourism, even less, because it's illegal. They find out that this North American man, Timothy something, I want to say his name so that we actually like show you what he looks like. And he was caught with 2 children, 12-year-old and a 13-year-old. Apparently, the 12-year-old was a trans boy, which means it's a little girl dressed up as a boy. Both kids were actually
Timothy Allen Livingston.
Timothy Allen
I'm
Livingston.
gonna send it to you.
Yeah. And apparently, the way that he was caught is that he brought the kids back to his Airbnb. And at the Airbnb, the security guard saw him and like asked for passports and ID for the kids. The kids had a fake ID that said they were over the age of 18. The security guard still didn't believe the guy. Point of the story is that I think some neighbors ended up calling the police on the guy because they were like, those are children. Like, no matter how much you try to dress them up or whatever, police come, they find 5 used condoms and narcotics. But somehow this
Wood
guy
chipper.
was able to escape.
Yeah,
And
that's
nobody
the
knows
article.
how.
That's the article I
Nobody
sent you.
knows how. Nobody knows where he is.
They're looking to get him extradited.
Yeah. So that is actually the situation that's happening there. People, so when they try to excuse this movement, not to say that feminists are bad or, things we don't have issues here, but when they try to just say that it's a movement, a lot of these men are just going there to engage in genuinely, like literally, like child sex trafficking.
Yeah.
You saw Sound of Freedom? Did you see it?
No, never saw it.
It takes place in Colombia, and it was a real life story of I forgot the name of the guy in the movie.
Well, it's like that's always been, I mean, for as long as I can I remember, even like as a young kid, like it was always like, like go to Mexico and like meet some beautiful like Latina woman. And then like that started to like evolve like into like a hobby for these guys. And that's when it starts to get, if you want to go travel the world and meet beautiful women, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You want to, there's nothing wrong with that. But when that becomes the objective, you start to attract weirdos. It's no longer a casual thing. It's you start to attract these weirdos, and look how slippery the slope is. It goes from, hey, let's go to Colombia to have some fun and party with some beautiful women who think we're great because we're Americans, right? That's the innocent version of it. And it's like that nobody's blaming anybody for that.
Yeah.
And then it's, well, we can't get any girls here because so I'm gonna go pay for it, right? Yeah. So I don't want to pay for it here too because it's more expensive. So I failed as a man in the United States. I can't go out and have fun and attract beautiful women, so I'm going to go and I'm going to be a predator now. I'm going to go on vacation with the intent of that. Very, very quickly, once you open that door and that becomes accepted as like sex tourism, like you're going on vacation to have sex with women that you're very likely going to pay for in some capacity or another. Once you open that door, it's no surprise that you wind up with Timothy the pedophile.
I don't want to laugh,
but it's true.
The pedophile just kind of
once you start allowing,
together.
It's just the slope is slippery. It's like he's like, oh wow, so you can go sleep with women.
Teens?
Wow, and this guy probably went on a couple of vacations too. This probably isn't his first rodeo where he found the 12 and the 13-year-old. He probably went and he probably had 1 or 2 or 3 goes at it, and he realizes, hey, I can get away with a lot here. You know what I mean? Like people don't know me. There's not a lot of cameras around. I'm in another country, so
I can pay people off.
Yeah, I can pay people off. Whatever it is, he starts learning the ropes, and you open that door to that unthrottled degeneracy where it's not only not regulated and accepted, but it's like encouraged.
Yeah.
And then you wind up with these people, and it's like it's no surprise, and I love what the mayor is doing where he's taking a hard stance on it, because that's the only way that people will learn.
Yeah.
Is you've got to make it very clear that, you know, FAFO, come down to Colombia and, you know, we got something for you.
So there was also a case, and this is something that I don't know why, like a lot of people picked it up, especially on TikTok. I remember seeing it. But basically, there was an American man accused of murdering his Colombian DJ girlfriend. This is a headline. And stuffing her body in a suitcase speaks out for the first time, claiming he has all the evidence that would clear him. Oh wow, I didn't know he had spoken. Oh, this is January. This is crazy. I didn't know this was an update. So, okay, so basically this guy, this came out later that he was divorced. He owed a bunch of child support. He had like taken all the savings of the family. The wife, I think they had 3 kids together or something. But the point is that he gets a Colombian girlfriend. I think it's even his Twitter is still up. He gets a Colombian girlfriend and then he moves there. He gets an apartment for them. He ends up killing the chick. Supposedly it was because he found that she was talking to other men. I don't know if that was ever confirmed. Nevertheless, you just don't kill people for talking to other men or women. Like, period. Like, you don't kill a woman, you don't kill a man. Like, you know what I mean?
If that's his reason, that's not.
And hold on, she was 23 years old. He drank and took drugs the day before. Her body was found in a suitcase. He has all the evidence that will clear him for killing Valentina Palacios, a father of 3. Yeah, he was a father of 3. Met Palacios on Tinder in 2020. Took her on vacation in Cancun. Da 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 da. This is the guy.
Oh, I saw this. Yeah, I remember
this guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the chick. Let's see.
So is this like an unhinged crime of passion?
Look, that's him putting the chick in the, you see her body in the car from a shopping cart inside of the apartment. Pretty crazy stuff. So my point is that there has always been a culture. Okay, so before 2020, I had a travel agency called Connect Colombia. I've had it since 2016. And the number one destination that we got customers for was Cartagena, and was a lot of bachelor parties, which we absolutely hated the bachelor parties because men are crazy, messy. They would ruin the house. And the thing is, we only rented private properties over there that are worth millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And these properties that are worth millions of dollars were also built in like the 1600s. So they have a lot of history. Like the people that own these homes are wealthy.
They're beyond beautiful.
Yeah,
I mean, these are like villas.
Yeah, these are like insane. And they would just like destroy it and like whatever. Like we hated it. But you know, it was like a group of friends that went there to spend money, have a good time, and they would meet chicks. Normal. Right. So this culture of meeting chicks in these countries is men go to Panama. That's another another country that they go to. Whatever. Red light district in Amsterdam, like whatever it may be. But there is a lot of weirdos, like probably this guy.
That
was divorced, and we don't know what happened. Or like that are going there, and a lot of times what the mayor said was that they're going there to satisfy like this crazy deep sexual fantasies that sometimes even lead into criminal acts like this. This is by the mayor, by the way. He didn't because they've noticed a pattern. On top of the fact that they've also put themselves in danger, because now you have gangs or like, you know, bad women affiliated with gangs or whatever, and they're robbing these men, and they're killing the men and robbing them as well. So it
attracts a type of man who has been hurt a lot. Right. Like when it goes from the innocent, me and my boys, went to Cancun, we had a blast and we met this great group of girls, blah, blah, blah. We hung with them and cool. When it starts becoming this thing, it attracts men who have had their hearts like broken, like men who have been like utter failures in some capacity, whether that's objective or subjective, whether they see, most of it is subjective. They're seeing themselves as utter failures. They've been rejected countless times by women. They don't know how to talk to women. They're afraid of rejection. They had their hearts broken. They're divorced. They're angry. They're bitter, all of these things. And then, you combine that with this, like, oh, I can kind of do whatever I want. And for men, you know, men function off of like power, right? So all men, regardless of what they say or what they'll admit, they all men desire to be powerful, influential, to get what they want when they want it. That's just something that's inherent. And when a man isn't able to get that in like the natural sense where he's like competitive and he wins, men start to get resentful. And that resentment is like poison, and it'll turn otherwise normal men into monsters.
Yeah.
And especially when it has to deal with women, especially when it has to deal with
a lot
women.
of them, like, they just don't get laid and they're bitter and miserable. There was a study that I retweeted the other day that literally said like involuntarily celibacy on men turns them into misogynist and like angry, and like
very much it's the ultimate
literally.
It's the ultimate form of rejection and failure. You know, like there's nothing more, especially when it compounds through the years and like as time goes on and that sort of involuntary celibatism is it gets worse and worse and worse, and it'll drive these weak men crazy to where you give them all of that bitterness and anger inside of them, and then you let them run loose, and you almost get this drunk on power effect where I can go now. I've never been able to do what I want. I've never been able to tell a woman what to do. I've never been able to have a woman desire me, all these things. Now I can go down with $1,000 and I can get my way.
Yeah.
And it's, if you've never experienced power, right? Like the way that you get accustomed to being powerful is like little by little, you stack your wins, right? You stack your wins through your life and you become more powerful, right? Same thing financially. You get accustomed to money by stacking it. You see people when they win a whole bunch of money, they lose it all. If weak men who have never obtained anything in their lives are all of a sudden the floodgates just opened, they're just going to be completely corrupted by it.
Yeah.
Whether they go into it with that idea like consciously or not.
So I just, Spring Hill said this comment: bachelorette parties are even worse in my opinion. They're not. Bachelorette parties are not worse. I rather have girl parties because girls are cleaner and they don't throw the crazier parties that men throw. Just think of fraternity parties versus a sorority party. Now, I don't know if you're talking about women sleeping, if this is talking about promiscuous, I don't know, because I wasn't there watching them have sex for either party, the men or the women. Sorry, that's just what it is. But in terms of like, who would I rather give my property to? It was always women. In fact, by 2018, most of our homeowners didn't want any more bachelor parties. Most houses, there was a crackdown on both prostitution and for underage kids again in Cartagena, and they did not want more male parties at all for that reason and for damages, because it would cause a lot of damages with the rowdy parties in these very expensive houses. So no, it's not. I mean, I don't know about having sex. I can't speak for the women. This comment right here, I just want to say this. Like you're saying, maybe the U.S. government should stop treating them as terrorist threats. This is more of a self-development situation. Like you can't blame the government for these young adults or these men who haven't taken care of their hygiene, don't want to work out, don't want to succeed, don't want to work. Like, then what are you going to say about the rest? There's always going to be weaker people in a population. And in the animal kingdom, there's always going to be weaker people. Like some people may be born more athletic, some of the ones may be taller, some of the ones agile, shorter, but you can't blame the US government for labeling them as terrorists and then just make that as an excuse for them not to have social skills or be able to date or be able to have sex.
I don't think the US government is labeling these guys as terrorists. I think these are the guys that are sitting at home playing, 14 hours of video games every day. Like I don't think that these are the guys that the United States government is labeling as a terrorist threat. I don't know if I'm misreading that comment, but I don't think that that's the case at all.
No,
I think these men are just very frustrated, and that they need help and they need brotherhood and they need good male role models and they need a lot. But I don't think the U.S. government has anything to do with it. Them as terrorists.
No, I don't think so either. So Ian, we're almost at the end of the show. It's like we've gone for an hour and 14 minutes. So what are some of the things that you're currently working on right now? Like from a brand, like an Ian's Smith brand, like business perspective, and then, any politics that are things that you're doing?
Well, so recently I moved to Florida.
Woo.
Long overdue. After I ran for Congress in New Jersey, I sold the gym to my former business partner. So the gym is still alive and well. There's still some issues as far as that whole COVID nonsense. It's just funny how quickly, when the government moves against you, they used to have us in court the same day, but we still have municipal charges and stuff like that are unresolved, because the jig is up with COVID and nobody really wants to answer for all of the stuff. So there's still some stuff going on with that. But after I moved, I got into a couple other business ventures. Summit Rejuvenation is my main business. We do telehealth and telemedicine in all 50 states. And we do men and women's hormones, blood work, peptides, all sorts of stuff like that. It's a great company. Something that's very relevant today, especially with a lot of men, but even just as much with women, hormonal issues because of environmental poisons, all sorts of stuff. Not even necessarily going on TRT, but just getting your blood work done and learning about some of the things that you can do to feel better overall, which is a fantastic business. And we started, that's a clinic that's been around for a couple of years, and I came aboard year and a half ago, and it's been fantastic. That and my other company is Recovery CBD. We have a 100% THC free CBD a line of CBD products that's sort of designed more towards athletics and performance, but is really for every person. But we do a lot of work with athletes and stuff. I wrote a book. Took me a while, but I wrote a book. The book is a little bit of memoir. It doesn't just talk about the COVID story, because that's kind of where everybody knows me. And it's really easy to tell a story when like you're the hero, but like, I feel like that's kind of like a cheap cop out, and just be like, here's this 200-page book on what a great person I am. And I've spoken all over the country as a result of what we did with the gym. And one of the things that I considered when I was writing the book was that, people always used to say, man, I wish I could do what you did. And that always used to like irritate me.
Oh my God. We've literally spoken about this here on the show.
And it's
how
like,
they say that. It's so
they say that because
almost.
but it's a self-limiting belief too, because if you would have asked me in 2019 if I would have thought that I could do the things that I did, I would have said, no, I'm just one person. And that's a really dangerous lie that we tell ourselves, is that somehow that the choices that we make don't matter, because I was just some obscure gym owner in 2020 who decided that he wasn't going to close his business, and look what happened as a result of it. So
I just, I want to just touch on, I'm sorry, but like, I hate the fact that there's so many people on the internet, particularly conservatives, who pretend like we're going to have some sort of either civil war or, the end of the civilization. Like, we saw in COVID that most people folded. We saw in COVID that most people didn't fight the legal way or nothing else. And, the reality is that we only saw a few people, like you being one of them, who stood up to the tyranny of their state or the federal government. Sure, there was people like the Daily Wire sued, for the COVID vaccine stuff, whatnot. We saw Fox complied. They had to even get people vaccinated. We saw really that people caved very easily, and it was scary.
Very much
because it wasn't just the government. What it was is that you expected everybody to stand up together and say, fuck you, no. And it was like, oh, wait a second. Like, it's only like, what? So 3 of us?
Yo!
And everyone's like, we're closing the. It was just so, it was so eye-opening. So I absolutely hate it when they're just like, especially, with the gender discourse, I have to go back to that because you posted about it. All these men who are always shitting on women. And again, we can have criticisms of both genders, across or we can, you could say more about women, whatever it is. But the reality is that when it comes down to, Mike Cernovich said it, he said, you guys that want women out of politics or just want to repeal the 19th Amendment or have these kind of like, thing. He goes, most women are the poll watchers. Most women are the ones that are doing activism. He like named all these things that Bella and I always talk about. Even the voter turnout, more women turn out to vote. So men aren't even as dedicated. You know what I mean? So it's like you have all these things to say, but like even during COVID, you didn't really show off. Like, you guys didn't really show off a lot.
No.
When tyranny was here, you weren't really showing off. So it's not like COVID was a real eye opener for me, at least, on like where we stand as a country and
Yeah,
how
but
much we're able to take.
there's that's a whole nother thing that we
Yeah,
could talk about. But the thing that I really just wanted people to understand is like, I think that the reason a lot of people, there's a lot of people who are just punks and who are scared and who, don't want to get a little slap on the wrist. But I think a lot of people think that what they do doesn't matter, right? Like it's like, oh, I'll just, going back to the COVID thing, I'll just put the mask on, because what does it matter if I go and get my groceries with the mask on? And it's like, no, that did matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like what would it have mattered if I just opened my back door and complied with the shutdown and let people come in the, in the back and pay me a couple bucks and try to weather the storm?
But that's kind of like I said about TikTok, when they're like, oh, it's just an app. Like, yeah, I know it's just an app. Like, I haven't opened up TikTok all day today. I'm not like addicted to it. Genuinely, today, I haven't looked at TikTok at all. Like, there's days that I don't, because I don't use it that much as like Instagram or X. But I'm like, you guys saying it's just an app. It's kind of the same thing, that it's just a mask. Like, it really didn't take us anything to put on a mask and travel, to put in a mask and go inside of the grocery store, to put in a mask to visit a family member. It really doesn't take much to just not have it TikTok. But it's the principle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the government telling you what to put in your face, because everyone is equally sick. The same thing with like what the government tells me. Fuck it, I may want to give my data to China. Did you fucking ask me about it?
Well, what was the article you sent me the other day? The AT&T security leak.
The AT&T security leak. And wait, we just found out that there is a lawsuit. There's a lawsuit against Meta, so Instagram and Facebook, for giving their private info to Netflix.
Yeah.
For millions and millions of dollars. So you never asked me. If you never asked me, maybe, you know what? Maybe I want to give China my data so I get better ads. And that's okay. I should be able to do that. I want to be targeted by ads that are way more accurate, that they know exactly what I want to buy. But with that being said, where can they find you?
Social media. I don't have a website. I'm not fancy. I don't do any of that stuff. Ian Smith Fitness on Twitter and Instagram.
We're not gonna read the super chats, but go ahead.
I think I'm on TikTok. I am on
you
TikTok.
Are on TikTok.
I'm not the Ian Smith Fitness on TikTok that's trying to sell you crypto. Right? Yes, just Ian Smith Fitness. It's the same username everywhere. Drop me a message. I'm always happy to chat.
Nice. All right, let me read the super chats. KS says, when a man to call himself high value is a really empty vessel making the most sound, but an individual sexually active, use a condom. My thing with the word high value, first of all, that giving value to humans, regardless of age, gender, blah, 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 it's kind of like, it just shouldn't be normalized, period, right? We can joke around a lot and say things, but like, every human being has his value. Yeah, you may not like a chick after 30 years old or whatever age it is that you want because you find her less valuable. But in the eyes of God, we're all equal, right? Until we die. You could be an 80 ugly-year-old lady, like God still like approves of you.
Yeah, it's just
or else commit suicide after like what, fucking 30, I guess. I don't know, whatever it may be. So when they say, for example, this guy Walter from Fresh and Fit, he calls himself a high value man. Today we find out that he can't take responsibility on a chick that he got pregnant. Very beautiful girl, looks like a sweet girl. And also he told her that essentially in the text messages that were leaked was that he was also sleeping without a condom, without protection, with 4 other women. Is that really a high value man? You know what I mean? Like, is that like sleeping around unprotected with 4 different women, knowingly well that you could impregnate any of those 4 women, and now you don't want to take responsibility, you want to just get rid of the body, right? Literally, quite literally. Is that really a high value man because you have money? So are we to say that every fucking person, then for that reason, George Soros is a great guy.
High value man.
High value man.
Super high value, yeah.
Bill Clinton.
High value man.
Joe Biden.
High value man.
If we're just going to say that having money and power and fame is what, no, seriously.
It's true.
That's what they're
It's
making
true,
it at, right? We're not looking at qualities. We're not looking at anything. We're looking at how much money you have, power and assets. And we could say any fucking Bill Gates is a high value man.
High value man.
Sake. Yes or no?
High value man.
So, this is exactly. So this is just something to consider. Emery Roy. Hi, Emery. I love you. You're the best. Have y'all seen a TikTok where Passport Bro is getting robbed and scammed by these women in these countries? The one I saw the other day was in Colombia. Yeah, it's hilarious. I'm sorry. I have to laugh. I also have to laugh about the fact that so a lot of these, especially the Black passport bros, they like to go to Brazil, they like to go to DR, they also like to go to Colombia. But what I find funny is that they're very racist towards the Black Americans here. They'll say, you know, these Black American women are super fat. We get it. Yes, it's like, you know, obviously not to generalize, but there is a lot of
Statistics.
obesity within, you know, minority communities. And they're fat or this or that. They have fake hair. They got this. They're doing BBLs. And there's some criticisms that I think are very true. The fake eyelashes trend is pretty, you know, absurd. But they go to these countries, especially Brazil, like the BBL stands for Brazilian butt lift. Do you understand why that is? Because it was in Brazil where they invented the BBL, literally. So you're going to the land of asses on top of fake asses, right? Like these bitches have asses, but they also get more ass. And you then claim that you don't like your type of women here because they also have said, you know, fake asses or whatever it is. So it's like nothing just makes sense. Like everything that they say.
I mean, most South
it's
American
just-
countries are like, you know, Colombia also is. It's like, you know, these people are on the frontier
of
plastic surgery. Yeah, I mean,
Literally.
like they are cutting edge.
Right.
They are very
Absolutely.
good at what they do.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going down to Colombia and
Yeah.
you're meeting a beautiful woman and you think that she's just naturally that beautiful, there's a high likelihood you're absolutely wrong. You know,
100%.
They're just way better at it. They've been doing it and it's cheaper.
There was a passport bro this week, a Black passport bro. I think TJ, you know who I'm talking about, a 24-year-old, and he's so obnoxious because he's 24. So imagine like retarded, almost like the, and he's going around and he's like putting his phone on like almost like the chicks' faces like this, like if they were like a zoo animal, like, you know. So he's going around to like Peru and Brazil and like all these places, and then he's like, you know, starts filming this girl and he's like, girls like this get the ring, you know. It's just like a nice girl that's a server that's serving you, like, here's your water and your Diet Coke. And like even the men were like trolling him because they were like, my boy, if you just wanted a waitress to be nice to you, you could have just gone to Hooters. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are we doing here? And then he goes to Colombia and then he starts filming these chicks in the streets in Cartagena, which is a predominantly Black city, important in this message because the Black American about to start crying racism in a Black Colombian city. You understand? Why? Because he almost got jumped because he starts filming these chicks and then men came and they like got in his face like, what the fuck are you filming? Why are you filming without permission? Like, it got like really tense for a second, but you know, and then he was crying, like saying Afro-Latinas don't want to date Black Americans because they're racist and they want to outbreed the Black.
But he doesn't want to date Black American women. I love it.
And the thing is, I saw messages from women later, and the women were saying like, first of all, the women are Black, right? So they're Afro-Latinas.
Yeah.
Or like darkened skin. And my thing is like, they'll just date other Afro-Latinos. Like they don't have to date you, a Black American. They'll just date those men who speak their language, know their culture. And then in text messages, they would say, you know, not for nothing, but a lot of these men are very arrogant. They have an ego. And the women simply don't vibe with that. Like they have a much more, Colombians are very happy people. They're very humble people. Obviously, I'm generalizing, but if there's something that Colombians stands out, like when people go to Medellin, when people go to these cities, you always hear gringos, like white people say, they're the nicest people in the world. Like I cannot explain to you how nice these people were, how hospitable, how they treated us. They're so respectful. So when you come from America, a lot of Americans are not like that. They don't have that, and they clash with the culture. So the women are like, no, you don't have that humbleness, like that charisma. Let me see this other super chat. I think the issue is 2004 Repo used to be 10% real talk about feminism and US women, 90% fix your physique, care, clothing, career risk, get 10% girlfriend, wife. 2024 Repos, fucking proving yourself, just bank course. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
true.
when the internet takes over and everybody's an expert and everybody has a podcast and everybody has a microphone and they just, you know, it's just whoever screams the loudest, and you're always going to get the lowest common denominator. Most of these things started as at least halfway decent ideas.
I disagree with this. I think there's a lot of racism in Latin America, but it's not acted upon. Like it's just a tougher culture, even machismo, which you could translate to like misogyny, but it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's not.
Bravado.
Yeah, and like the thing about it is that I grew up in a really like my city has a lot of black people, and it's really close to Buenaventura, which is one of the blackest cities in Colombia overall. It's like 90% black. You know, it's in the Pacific, so it was in the coast. So there was slave trade.
Mhm.
So those, you know, that they've been there since literally slavery.
Yeah.
It's very black, and there, I've never saw the tension like the way that Black Americans are here. It's completely different than these Afro Latinos, and I think it's because in America they removed the black culture, any culture that they had before. Like I was looking at old videos on Twitter of like Black America like years ago.
1950s.
Right. And everybody was like dressed really well and everybody was like healthy and in shape and they were dancing whatever music was hot at the time. In Colombia, until this day, African culture, Black culture is very embedded in our culture. So salsa came from the slaves in Cuba. That's where salsa originated. It's the African slaves started, you know, whatever, they come up with this beat and it goes to Colombia, to Cali, from where I'm from, and that becomes the capital of salsa. So, you know, our food, our dances, a lot of the stuff is like mixed with African and Blacks. And to this day, they never had hip hop. They didn't have like the culture that Americans have. So our Blacks are like night and day.
Yeah, 100%.
Completely different. Completely different. So I don't think they're treated any different. Let me see. Every Latin American country besides Colombia has primarily like white Latinos. Yeah, of course, because most white Latinos are the majority, and they are also the majority that prospered before because blacks were slaves, blacks were impoverished. There's still a lot of black poverty. Majority of cities in here, actually here as well. Go to St. Louis. Whenever I go to Andy to visit First Form, and you go through the horrible streets of St. Louis, it looks like fucking Baghdad. Are you kidding me? It looks like you're in the Middle East. Like the cab drivers will tell you, the Uber drivers, that you can't stop through those streets. You
Mhm.
have to like
Yeah.
drive through. Cops do not want to go to certain areas in St. Louis, Missouri,
Just like
or
Philadelphia.
Baltimore or Philadelphia. They don't want to go into these black cities. So yes, imagine if we have so much black poverty here in America. Imagine in a developing country like Colombia. Like that's what you have to think. It's not that they're treated bad. It's not that. It's that they're even less advanced than this country is. I'm telling you, go visit these black cities in Philly and St. Louis and everywhere else. You'll be shocked. Like, when I was in St. Louis, I remember I went to the First Forum headquarters. There was this huge influencer there. I don't remember his name. He does all these jokes with his wife, and I think he's signed as an athlete or something with First Form. Anyways, I met him at the gym, and he was saying how he was like scared to leave his hotel in St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean,
He's like, I'm not gonna leave after a certain time.
no, you in St. Louis, you shouldn't. Absolutely not. I mean, it's a rough city. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
I don't think, this whole I'm reading this comment, the anti-black, like there's anti-blackness within the black culture. So
yeah.
like you can't,
When they make it, they're like, they abandon the community.
you can't say like, oh, Latinos are doing that, or I mean, like that's and why that is, I don't know, but I don't think that's a strictly Latino thing. I mean, like that's, and I don't think it has to do anything with certain degrees of blackness as it does maybe financial issues or like just,
economic opportunity. Like blacks are, it is true, blacks are more poor in Latin America. That's a fact. You know, that is 100% a fact. But overall, Latin America is also very poor, right? Indigenous
so it's just
people
gonna get
are
worse,
disproportionately poor. And so are like most people in Latin American countries, right? But also when we look at Cuba, in Cuba, when Fidel started the revolution, the minorities, which were the blacks, really, were the ones that were supporting, because minorities always support communism. Well, they were the ones that were supporting communism. And look at Cuba now. all of the white Cubans were able to come to Miami. That's why you have so
Yeah,
many
they're all
white
here,
Cubans
yeah.
in Miami. They're all here. What was left in Cuba was just the very poor, the ones that agreed with communism, and a lot of blacks, and they're doing worse than ever. Like they're doing fucking terrible. They're eating out of trash cans. Like
Cuba
literally.
Cuba was I went when Trump lifted the ban.
Yeah.
And it is a beautiful country, but it is unimaginably poor.
It's horrible.
I mean,
I thought
like
it was horrific.
most of the streets in Havana
Yeah.
aren't even paved.
No.
They look
The
like
buildings are falling.
it looks like a war zone.
It looks
You
like a
have
war
giant
zone.
holes in the streets that kids
Yeah,
are
it's
playing
horrible.
in. They're eating out of like newspaper, like spaghetti out
bad.
of newspaper, which is like noodles and ketchup.
Yeah, this guy's like they imported. No, they didn't import. White people, white men, white Europeans. Well, Spanish depends on who you ask. They'll say that the Spanish are not European. The Spanish conquered Latin America and mixed with blacks and natives
to create.
and
they
created
Hispanic,
what
right?
is our race.
Yeah.
So of course, I'm sure you're just a black supremacist that is so concerned with all this stuff. I mean, maybe just breed with your own, right? I've been saying about this. Have you seen my rants about eugenics?
If you're
and
unhappy
genetics?
with it, just
start breeding with blacks. I mean, genuinely, like if you are so concerned about black genes, you could genuinely just breed with black genes. Whites can breed with blacks, and Latinums can breed with Latins.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Jews do it.
yeah,
Jews only
everybody
want to
just
marry each
stay
other.
to yourself. No, that's racist.
Hindus only want to marry each other. But if you want us to cry about black people on this show and feel bad for whatever reason, or the Jews, or everyone's just so fucking racist, you got the wrong two people. I genuinely have no fucking emotion and don't care. And yeah, some people do want to better their race and genetics. And you know what? There's nothing you can do about it, because actually us women get to choose whatever genetics we want to have. You know, we are the real eugenicists. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, eugenicists.
Eugenicists. It's us women. So you can blame women again. We're evil. We will not breed with you if we don't feel like we don't have to. And it's that simple. I mean, you can call the breeding police. Well, who do you call for this? Refer this to I don't know.
Department of DEI.
The Department of DEI.
Yeah.
We don't have to breed with you if we don't want to, and we actually can outbreed you. We can if we wanted to, because women choose.
Yeah.
So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I'm sure Bella
Feel better, Bella.
will feel better next week. And thank you, Ian, for being here. I know
My
it's
pleasure.
late
Thanks for having me
night. But we will see you next week. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna put this tomorrow on Spotify, and if you didn't listen to it. So have a great night. Bye.
Night.